Africa. I would now invite His Excellency Ambassador Hilda to observe our protocol. She's the ambassador of the African Union to the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A good morning and a good afternoon. I would only say all protocols are observed at the moment. And I would want to introduce our commissioner, Ambassador Albert Mudenda Muchanga. He is African Union Commissioner for Economic Development, Trade, Industry and Mining. In addition to these broad areas, the portfolio also covers tourism, investment, innovation, entrepreneurship, economic integration, economic policies and research, statistics, oil and gas. He is formerly Commissioner for Trade and Industry. In this position, he provided strategic leadership in facilitating negotiation, conclusion, and ratification of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, which entered into force on 30th May 2019, and the whole start of trading was launched on the 1st of January 2021. In addition, Ambassador Muchanga provided similar leadership on matters of trade, industrialization, mining and customs cooperation. He mobilized the African private sector to play a greater role in the African Continental Free Trade Area, culminating in the establishment of the African Business Council, Pan-African Manufacturers Association, Association of Chambers of Mines, and other mining associations in Africa. Ambassador Muchanga previously worked in the Zambian civil service at home and abroad, including as the permanent secretary, ambassador of Zambia to Brazil, ambassador of Zambia to Ethiopia, and the permanent representative of the African Union and United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and as deputy executive secretary of the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Ambassador Muchanga works with ease at technical, professional management, leadership, and political levels. I thank you.
Ambassador Muchanga, thank you so much. Please.
Thank you very much, Toyin Omesiri, the founder of the Trade with Africa, as well as our strategic partner. And thank you, our ambassador to the USA and permanent representative, Your Excellency Hilda Suka Mafuze, ever hardworking. And also I salute the earlier speaker, Mr. Doug McMillan, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Walmart and the Chairman of the Business Roundtable. And I also salute the distinguished guests and panelists who were introduced to us earlier on. And let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be back to the Trade with Africa Business Summit. In 2019, I was honored with the Champion of Trade Award. The trophy and the certificates are among my treasured collections of recognition of effort in the workplace. And right now, both of them are in my office. The certificate is behind me, the trophy just ahead somewhere. I also earnestly thank you for this opportunity to engage with you on the topic, the clarion call to accelerate economic recovery for Africa post-COVID. The topic is timely for a number of factors. Many countries around the world came up with robust stimulus packages to enable their economies weather the storm of the COVID-19 disruption. However, the resource envelope for African governments was very small relative to the needs that they faced. And this is due to their very limited public finances. As we move towards the post-COVID-19 era, some countries have come up with very aggressive recovery plans with full financing. But in the case of Africa, the International Monetary Fund estimates that the continent will between now and 2025 require $285 billion. And this money is aimed at stepping up spending in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. To mobilize this huge financing requires both domestic and external resources. The urgency also lies in the fact that Africa has undergone a recession due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a phenomenon last experienced way back in 1995, which is 25 years ago. Furthermore, projections are that between now and 2025, the economic growth rates in Africa are projected to be among the lowest in the world. Some countries will grow as much as 19%, others about 6.5%. Africa will be lower than that. Although we have these prospects that are not very bright, there's also a fact that Africa cannot afford a new era of sustained recession. Such a trend would wipe out all the gains made in poverty reduction efforts. We cannot sit back and let this happen. It is against this background that we've started, after the election and the installation of the new members of the African Union Commission, to work on measures to facilitate Africa's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The work is at national, regional, and continental levels. I will focus on the efforts at national and continental levels. At national levels, the African Union member states are coming up with reforms for sustained recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of these measures are achieving debt sustainability, promoting social protection, promoting job creation, expansion of fiscal space, promoting export diversification, and among others, mobilizing increased investments. Increased investments are key to accelerating Africa's inclusive sustainable development. Key to mobilization of investments will be a number of factors, such as elimination of illicit financial flows from Africa, progressively increasing the number of African countries with emerging market status until all are in that status as a way of de-risking the African market, and encouraging African pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, entrepreneurs, and the African diaspora to expand their investments across Africa. All these measures contribute to boosting domestic resource mobilization. The role of the African private sector is critical in this process of economic recovery. We also need the strategic support of the African diaspora to come up with innovative solutions to Africa's economic recovery and development. Of course, Africa, like the rest of the world, will always welcome foreign investments. We are, however, alive to the fact that after massive capital flight from emerging economies as an immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic, foreign direct and portfolio investment flows to emerging economies will take time before they begin to increase. But I can assure investors that you can weather the tide, and we encourage you to come back to Africa as soon as possible. Work at the continental level is focused on three key elements. These are increasing intra-African trade through the African Continental Free Trade Area, which started operating on 1st January 2021. And two, expanding manufacturing and agro-processing to supply this large market of 1.3 billion people. And it's estimated to be 1.7 billion people by 2030. And three, building export capabilities at firm and national levels to increase Africa's share of global trade. For us to achieve all these, we have the complementary key tasks of developing integrated and complementary value chains across the continent, digitalizing the value chains, reinforcing public-private partnership to scale up investments in African manufacturing and agro-processing, and working with the partners like yourselves to enhance exports to lucrative markets like the United States of America. This partnership comes against the background of ongoing work on trade and investment relations that should emerge between Africa and the United Nations and the United States of America after the expiry of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, in 2025, which is 4 years from now. I'm sure that both the US and African governments will look forward to this platform providing inputs in this direction, and I encourage you to. As I come to the end of my statement, I would like to state that Africa has a young population, and all previous speakers brought out this fact. This makes the continent a future growth hub. We all need to invest in that market. The perceived market risks are not insurmountable. It is in this spirit that the Paris Summit on Financing of African Economies, held on 18th May this year, decided to establish the Alliance on Entrepreneurship in Africa, which is aimed at coming up with measures to de-risk the African market. Since the returns on investment in Africa are high and lucrative, it goes that a prosperous Africa greatly contributes to a prosperous world. The opposite, an economically weak Africa, contributes to an economically weak world, also holds true. What is clear from all this is that Africa has to prosper. Nobody can afford to leave Africa behind, as the rest of the world charges towards recovery. To achieve that prosperity at our level as Africa, I would like to emphasize that we must make the African Continental Free Trade Area work. And to date, this is our biggest development program. Export diversification anchored on manufacturing, agro-processing, and among others, intra-African trade in energy are key in ensuring that this market delivers to the expectation of all stakeholders. I also like to emphasize that we must also enhance to build Africa's capacities to effectively compete in global markets. A competitively interdependent Africa in global markets is an Africa with better prospects for prosperity. I conclude by also re-emphasizing that to succeed, we must work together in solidarity. You are our partner. Let us continue working together in promoting increased trade and investments relations between Africa and the United States of America. I end here and thank you for your attention.
Wow, wow, wow. Like if you're in person now, I'm sure the entire floor will be clapping. But thank you so much, His Excellency. And I also want to use the opportunity to engage in a short Q&A before we let you go, sir. Is
No
that
problem.
okay? Fantastic.
It's okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So honorable panelists and attendees, use the question box to submit any question you have. But right away, I have mine already, sir. Congratulations on all your successes and again, your expanded role, particularly in the economic development for the continent. Also, in reading your bio and, Ambassador Hilda, the African Union ambassador to the United States, did a fantastic job on that piece. I also realized that you're very passionate about the private sector, sir. You know me, I'm always talking about the private sector. In fact, what I like to say about our platform is it is private sector led, but policy supported. Because I believe the future of Africa, the private sector needs to be more empowered. That's my passion, and you know that already, and that's why I can say that publicly. So I realized that you have the Afro champions, And also in your bio, you facilitated mobilizing the private sector in the African Business Council.
Mhm.
The question I have with you, for you, sir, as a strategic partner is, how can we mobilize similar platforms within the diaspora to mobilize our resources for effective transformation on the continent? What would you advise me?
Thank you very much. It's a
Yes,
very,
sir.
very, very good question and very strategic. The best is that you organize yourself as the African Diaspora Business Association. You can have a better name, Business Association. And when you have decided to incorporate yourselves, you can call for an inaugural meeting of that gathering, and I'll be there to give an address, and even the ambassador can also give an address, and maybe we could even invite somebody from the US administration to also give an address. After that, we leave you to do two prime things. One, you decide to come up with an interim executive to map out a program of work for the association. And two, you decided to come up with the articles of agreement, because every association has some legal provisions. And you agree on a timetable. Normally it's about 1 year to finish the work. It can even be done earlier. Then when you have done that, then you can have the second meeting where you report to the broad membership the work we have done. And if they approve the legal instrument, then you go to the next stage of electing a substantive executive committee. The duration will be in the articles of agreement. And of course, there will also be the headquarters of that association. And when you have done that, now you come to the next stage, which is to formally write to us for my attention, Commission for Economic Development, Trade, Industry, and Mining, that want to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the African Union and the African Business Association, or whatever we call it. And I can assure you that I work with our legal team to ensure that we do this without losing any time. That's the roadmap.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, this is
Yes.
this is fantastic. This is
Okay.
amazing. Similarly, on the US side, like you know, sir, a lot of the work we do is outside of Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
for a reason.
Mhm.
Because as we're talking about economic development, I like to say it's actually at the local level in cities in the US. And later on Friday, we'll actually feature a city that has really embraced Africa and Africans. This is Chicago. But also, last year we featured the chairman of the US Council of City Councils.
Mhm.
So what key message, sir, would you share with the American and beyond just America, the business community of foreigners, in terms of how they can participate and organize themselves as well?
Well, I think the starting point is to have a lot of faith in the African market. Historically, we have been called a hopeless continent, but all of you spoke earlier than me. You indicated the vibrance of the African middle class, the fact that the young population is the workforce of the future. And the chief executive officer of Walmart also re-emphasized those points. So there is need for people to really see the brighter prospects of Africa and what it can offer. And I indicated in my speech that we are working with the International Finance Corporation, the European Union, among others, to set up the Alliance for Entrepreneurship Development in Africa. This is aimed at de-risking the market. So I would invite our colleagues really to show greater interest in Africa. The opportunities are huge. And anchored on this is the large market that we have created, and you also talked about it, the African Continental Free Trade Area. American business is normally emphasizes on large scale. Now we are creating a market where if you produce in Ethiopia, you export duty-free across the whole of Africa, which is very lucrative. So the opportunities are very, very, very vast. And if they want us to have regular engagement, like I'm having an engagement with you this afternoon, we are available.
Definitely, and that's something would love to also help facilitate. I think one thing is we have to keep this going. It's not a one-time done.
No,
So
no,
we
no.
have to open that channel. So I also want to, yes, I also want to publicly thank you, sir, because I tell my community, even beyond just inviting you to show up for my community, behind the scene, you allow us to tap into, the resources and also partner and engage. Just like in last October, I had the honor of facilitating a trade facilitation training for government. So thank you so much for allowing us to do that, to bring our skills and resources to the table. We do have a question here from Mr. Bernard Buteng. I believe he's joining from Ghana because he's a member of the network. His question is targeted towards the infrastructure. What is the Africa doing to develop infrastructure to support the AFCFTA or economic development, if I can say that in general?
Well, the key element is resource mobilization. We have a huge package of infrastructure programs and projects across Africa. The annual financing gap is about 170 billion US dollars. Part of the problem has been the fact that most of these projects are not well prepared and therefore cannot mobilize or cannot not attract public-private partnerships. So we are working with our partners to see if we can boost the project preparation capacities across Africa so that we come up with bankable projects. And then we're also teaming up with the private sector to assist us in mobilizing financing for infrastructure development. And one of our partners is based in Ghana, which is the Afro Champions. So we have a program where we are going to be mobilizing resources. But the biggest incentive right now is that we have created the African Continental Free Trade Area, which makes it very economically viable for people to invest in large scale projects. For example, if one invested in the Inga Dam project, which is in the DRC, and one of the key shortages we have as we move towards enhanced industrialization is in energy. We need a lot of energy resources. So with this large market, it will be easier now to establish a huge infrastructure programs like the Inga Dam, because we have a red market ahead of us. Thank you.
Fantastic. The next question actually connects very nicely to that. And I believe it's coming more from an SME, from a small, medium-sized enterprise standpoint. As we know, the base of Africa is primarily the small, medium-sized company. And the question is around just your advice in terms of how can they mobilize, funding for the private sector, particularly small, mid-sized organization. Just your advice.
Well, I think a number of factors affect SMEs, some of which is that they lack capacity in bookkeeping. And as a result, it becomes very, very difficult to convince financiers that if they are given the money, they'll be able to pay it back with some interest. So capacity building for SME is quite important. And we have realized ourselves that to build Africa entrepreneurship, we must start with the small and medium enterprises. Most of today's big businesses were companies that started sometimes in the classroom or sometimes in the father's garages and so forth. But today they are big, big companies. So starting small is the right thing to do. And to this end, we have partnered with an Africa Diaspora social enterprise. The name of the company is Africa E-Trade Group. We are working on two key issues with them. One of which is they've started the Sukuk platform, where they'll facilitate e-commerce on the products of small and medium enterprises. And they'll be able to give them adequate training to do that. And to ensure that this is done, that social enterprise has teamed up with the One Islamic Development Finance Corporation to mobilize $20 billion to be utilized over a period of 10 years and to facilitate the development of 600,000 SMEs between now and 2024. And then they should be able to generate 5 million jobs. So I think via email, you can send me an email. I'll give you the address of that social enterprise. That's the first level.
Yes.
The second level is that we have teamed up with them to start up, to come up with the youth startup program. And the way we are approaching it is to promote competition. So we agreed that we are going to have 150 youth startup operators, including those from the diaspora, to compete for exhibition space at the Intra-African Trade Fair, which is supposed to take place in November this year, December this year. There has been some changes on the venue, but we intend to have it. If not, we're going to have a virtual platform. Now, I'm advised that so far there are about 2,600 applications. So again, I can give you the address so that you encourage others to compete. They've not yet closed the bids. And those who are chosen, the 150, are going to be networked with the venture capital firms. And we are targeting to raise about $3 billion in equity financing during those activities. So that's what the advice I would give to the SMEs. The opportunities are there, so make use of them. And you are the ambassador. I'll give you the details of the contact organization. Thank you.
Yes. In fact, now that you're saying it, I think I'm already plugged in. He's based in Canada, right?
Yes.
The secretariat in
then
Ghana.
I don't need to give you the address, yes. You just
already
secretary the address to the interested parties. Yes.
Yes, we met, we had a conversation. The secretariat in Ghana introduced us, and we had a very, very frank conversation, and he did share everything you're saying.
You know
now.
him.
Yes. Yes. He's an elder, and I appreciate that. But definitely, I think you bringing it up definitely also calls my attention back to that. That is something I need to bring to my community.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. There's a question on agriculture. Professor Nimrod, he says, what is the one thing that you would like to change to advance agro industry across Africa?
Well, the one thing I would like to do is, he's an academic. I think he understands where we need to industrialize African agriculture so that it becomes more productive and it generates high returns. And certainly, I'm going to get in touch with him so that I can also link him to our Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture so that we work together to ensure that we improve the productivity of the African agricultural sector throughout the continent, because it's key to the development of agro-processing. And when we go into agro-processing, then we reduce the possibilities of hunger across the continent. And we can also reach a stage where we stop importing food from the rest of the world, except if you are committed, you are hooked to, for example, Brazilian beef. And so let me just have Brazilian beef instead of African beef today. But the dependence right now is that because there are no ready supplies within Africa. So let us develop the African agriculture sector so that we supply the market with the agro-processed goods. Thank you.
Yes, this is what happens on the Trade with Africa Business Summit platform. Professor Nimrod, you just got yourself the continent, to embrace the work that you do. So I'll make that happen. I'll make that introduction.
Thank
Fantastic.
you. All right.
Yes. Okay, sir. I want to move into a very a space that I'm so passionate about, AGOA.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh my goodness. I think I can publicly share now the
Mm,
work I've been doing behind the scene for over 2 years. We've had opportunities from major buyers. I'll just
mm,
give a funny example.
mm,
But one of the buyer who is a friend of mine was like, Toyin, I hear you talk about trade with Africa. Does Africa have Christmas ornaments? We're ready. We're getting ready to buy for this Christmas season now. I was like, I'll be right back. So, so sir, just very
mm,
transparently, capacity. One
yes.
thing that we've had to do, we've started training, started coaching because personally, the work I used to do was, the infrastructure of global sourcing.
Mm,
And a lot of times people talk about, oh, there are middlemen that come into the African market today. They buy raw, they export, and then they push it into the international market. And my challenge to everybody really is if you would like to eliminate the middlemen, you
mhm.
have to be ready to take on the responsibility and the work
Yes.
that they do.
Mm,
Because the international market is not going to change its
mm,
standards
mm,
for anyone.
mm,
So that's part of the key part of the work that I do, because I
mm,
believe if we buy more from Africa, we can
mm,
sell more to Africa. It's the
yes.
will. And you've
Mm,
heard me say that, sir.
mm.
So I just want to hear you. Where do we stand with AGOA? Like, how do we accelerate AGOA adoption? you know, like, I'm just throwing this as an open question, just to hear your thoughts on that topic.
Well, the current arrangements on AGOA are still valid up to 2025, which is about 4 years from now. We've already started engagement with the US administration. We should have met last year, but the COVID disrupted everything. So not too long ago, the virtual meeting with the US Assistance Trade Representative, where we said, where do we take it from now? So we agreed that we should, before the end of the year, organize a ministerial meeting based on the documents to be prepared by ourselves, both the African side and the American side. And our ambassador in Washington, DC is going to be key in the production of those documents. And it will be out of that review where we'll be able to say, where do we stand? But the key problem is, there are two key problems on the African side. One is investment capacity. Very few African would-be suppliers cannot supply a market of 350 million consumers in the US. So we need to expand the investments across. And then the next issue is limited capacity to meet the technical standards that are required for the product to enter the market. And this comes under the broad umbrella of enhancing capacity to export across the world. So this is one of the key elements that we are working on. Certainly it's a major problem, but we are working towards meeting that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And tomorrow, actually, for everybody, we'll be having representative from the Prosper Africa team as well, through our own engagement with them. There are about 17 US government agencies that supports trade with Africa. And tomorrow we'll be hearing from Mr. Bill, who will be sharing more in terms of the various key opportunities, exporting to US, exporting to Africa, investing in Africa, investing in US. So please look out for that as well. His Excellency, this has been an honor. Any parting words? I'm still going to keep, reaching
You're
out to
welcome.
you.
You're welcome. Anytime, once you say come, I'll come running.
Oh, it's such an
I'll not
honor,
let you
sir.
down.
Oh my God,
I'm
this
a
is
strategic partner. So
yes,
rest
sir.
assured that I'll always be there to support you.
Oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
public vote of confidence in our work is just
You
it's
deserve it.
I cherish it.
You
Thank
deserve
you.
it. All
Oh,
right.
thank you, sir.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you to your team in
All right.
Accra. Thank you to Mr. Terek, Ambassador. Thank you. Ambassador Hilda, do you want to say anything, please? Unmute, please. This is your floor. Unmute, ma'am. We need to unmute you, ma'am. Okay.
I just would want to say this is confirmation of Look Africa. And when the commissioner Muchanga speaks, know that there's business there. So it's time to run to Africa right now. And we really have to ensure we make our youth get to a certain level. And they are the future of tomorrow. And with this population boom, it's Africa way. Look Africa. Thank you.
Fantastic. Beautiful words, ma'am. Such an honor. And thank you to Mr. Terek for also helping to facilitate this. Such an honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye, sir. God bless you, sir. God bless you.